Janette, welcome. Thank you so much for being here and sharing what you know about tapping. Tapping is still a bit unknown, I believe. Is that true?
Actually, it's becoming more and more well known around the world because it actually has been around for quite a long time, since the 90s at least. And now that more and more scientific research has been done as to why the benefits of tapping, what actually happens physiologically in your body while you tap, it is starting to be used more widely by psychologists and some psychiatrists, and it has definitely got a much higher profile. Actually, it has been recommended in the United States as a treatment for post-traumatic stress, as the #1 treatment, I believe, and that's pretty amazing in a country that's fairly concerned.
Well, I'll introduce you to the listeners and the lookers. So Janette Mattingley is from the EFT Express. So she was a primary school teacher. However, after a workplace accident in 1980 left her with chronic headaches every day, she began doing the rounds of GPs, then chiropractors, osteopaths, naturopaths, massage therapists, and you name it. It was in the area of natural therapies that she found relief. And in 1985, she began a part-time diploma of natural therapies. In 1986, when her son was born with a severe disability, she left teaching and her studies to become a full-time carer. She continued her exploration of healing, and in 1988 did Reiki 1 and 2 and became a volunteer at the Usui Reiki Center in Camberwell. She also completed a diploma of reflexology in 2008. During volunteer weekends at the Reiki Center, she developed a love of working with her emotions as a creative force in her life. So in 2007, when a friend introduced her to tapping, or EFT, she immediately loved it for its simplicity and ease of use. This resulted in the creation of the EFT Express. In 2016, to teach tapping and to help clients, friends, and family take charge of their emotions, reduce stress, anxiety, release unresolved emotional issues, and to create their lives as consciously as possible. Now, all that sounds absolutely wonderful. So how does it benefit you personally? Is it something you do once in a while or every day? Where does it come from?
I tap all the time, or not all the time, but I am tapping now. I'm using the finger points where no one can see. Tapping helps me to maintain clarity, especially if I'm in a new situation, like doing my very first podcast, which may be seen by some people. As I just said to you before, I've just watched the last episode of Stateless while I was having my lunch, which was very, very moving. And I did a lot of tapping on my thymus point, which I use a lot.
Yep.
Tapping helps me to reduce stress. It helps me with anxiety. My anxiety levels now are very, very low compared to where they were some time ago. Certainly tapping has been a really big part in helping me to manage anxiety. It was pretty chronic there for a while. What the science is showing is that when you tap on these points, even though we kind of don't really understand exactly why it happens, your stress hormone levels are lowered quite dramatically in certain situations. Your immune response is improved, which is a really important thing right now. That you can do something, it's at the end of your fingertips, just by tapping on some points on the body and the hands, you can actually improve your immune system. It also changes frequency in the brain, calms down the parts of the brain that are involved in, panic and stress, that fight, flight, fright mechanism. It calms all of that down, and that's why it's so good for post-traumatic stress. And it's just at the end of your fingertips. You can just sit and watch television You can tap on the finger points. You can just rub.
I saw you at the start, you tapped with your thumb on the tip of which
yes,
finger?
you can tap. Look, there's lots of it. If you go online, I'll give you talk about my friend Steve Wells later on, EFT Down Under. He and his friend Dr. David Lake came up with the finger points. So they are on the, if you hold my hand that way, on the top edge of the thumb and on the top edge of each finger going down. And also there's a point here that's called the karate.
On the side there.
And stuff like that. And you can just use those points. If you think of no other point to tap on but the thymus point, which is my go-to point. For my other people, it might be the point under the collarbone, which is very much associated with kidney energy and with fear, anxiety. But I just use that point here, and it's become muscle memory for me. In a traumatic situation, I just, without thinking, start to tap on that point.
Yeah.
And what I found actually more recently was when I was feeling quite stressed about something, I slowed the tapping right down, and I actually like to talk out loud often. I can go into the room, my healing room, and I really like to speak out loud and tap. So I kind of talk and tap. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I found in this situation that as I tend to tap quite quickly normally, and someone pointed that out to me once. I thought, oh, yeah, actually I do. So I just slowed it right down, and I just felt the calming effect coming much, much more quickly and deeply as I slowed it all down. So that's another little technique that people can use if they're feeling stressed, to slow it right down.
Now, when you tap on the thymus, why is it important to tap here, and how does it work? The thymus, as we are teenagers and adults, shrinks. So what is the effect of tapping on the thymus?
Well, I think it's really, I suppose it doesn't really matter. You can tap on any point. And in fact, probably if you tapped anywhere on the body, it's just that the points that were chosen are on the Chinese meridian system. And that goes right back to something that happened with a psychologist in America who was tapping with someone. This one person had a phobia of water, and he'd recently done a kinesiology workshop, and all he could remember was that this point here on the face was to do with the stomach. And because his client had a lot of sensations in her solar plexus area, he suggested that she tap on this point, and she had amazing results. The water phobia completely went away.
Yep, on both.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Tapping is amazingly user-friendly. You can tap on one side of the body, you can tap on the other side of the body, you can change sides. That is actually really nice. I find it very calming when I alternate points. You can alternate sides, very balancing, very calming, I find it. So you can choose just a sequence of points, 3 or 4 points that are your favourite points.
Okay.
I'll just show you. These are the points. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
Okay, so they're the
familiar with that image, but it's great to see it.
Oh, that's it's my image. I had my graphic designer do that, and it just shows the thymus point. And I like it just because it's your heart, and it is, yes, it is your thymus. It is your immunity. It is like, this is me, Tarzan. Oh, this is me. This is who I am. And it's just a really simple one to remember. And for me, it works really, really well. Some people might find another point, but this is just, for me, the point that
I'm going to ask you a question that you may have the answer to that or not. Having had a heart attack myself 10 years ago, and I know that when you do resuscitation on someone and you go against the heart, it can interfere with the beat of the heart. With the tapping, I know it's done gently, but maybe someone could think, oh, how does it affect my heart? Do you have...
Look, I've never thought about that aspect of it, and I've never heard of anybody having an issue with that. But if someone is worried about that, well, just choose another point.
Tap on other points.
But any point that you tap on, your stress levels go down.
Yeah.
So, it may be that the tapping will reduce the person's anxiety about that past event. It may bring up some issues around that past event, fears of it perhaps reoccurring or whatever. Yeah, I can't imagine that tapping on point very, very gently would provoke any sort of a heart issue.
Yeah.
But
I totally agree with you. It's just that having that experience myself, and each time I tap there, I think about it, that maybe someone would be concerned. But because we tap gently, it shouldn't interfere with the heartbeat.
Well,
so.
you can also think of it as it's actually part of what's called the central meridian, which starts at the just down near the pubic area, and it comes up and it ends here. So it is just a part of. So you can just tap on this point. This point is still on the same meridian.
Yep.
But it's just at the end of it rather than in the middle of it. So,
great. So where does EFT come from? How was it created?
Well, as far as I know, what happened was, the earliest part of it I know is a psychologist called Roger Callahan in America. As I said, he was working with a lady called Mary who had a severe water phobia and had been working with her for a very long time with no breakthroughs until this day when he asked her to tap on this point and she said, it's gone. And he said, what do you mean it's gone? And the story goes, she ran out to his pool and he was worried that she was going to jump in and drown herself, and she just splashed water on her face and said it's gone.
Wonderful.
So whatever had started that phobia, and she couldn't even wash herself apart, she had a very big problem with water, it just went. So whatever the link was to that memory, that emotion that she had, tapping on that point just released it, and she was fine. And what is being found with tapping is that things don't recur. Like, I watched a podcast a couple of days ago with Dr. Peta Stapleton, P-E-T-A. She's a professor of psychology at, I think it's Bond University. And she's someone who's done a lot of research, like conducted properly scientific trials about tapping. And so if anybody's interested in that, they could just Google or look at her website, drpeterstapleton.com. And she talked about all the science that's come out now about tapping and what happens when you tap. She tends to work with the American EFT tapping, so people perhaps heard of the tapping solution. But anyway, so Roger Callahan, so he started this, and he started something called thought field therapy, but it was much more complicated. He came up with different algorithms of doing points in certain orders for certain things. And then a man called Gary Craig, who was actually an engineer, trained with Roger Callahan, and eventually Gary Craig came up with the version of EFT that kind of started to spread all around the world. And he came up with these points that I showed you under the arm like that, and the karate chop point. Yeah. And he just applied them just by working through them, no changing the order, and found that it worked anyway. And in fact, tapping works even if you're not thinking about a problem. You can just do lots of tapping every day to strengthen your energy system. As my friend Steve talks about bad feelings and the good feelings. In fact, in my belief, there's no good or bad feeling. They're all fantastic. It's how you deal with them that is the issue. And you will get benefits, even if you just tap while you take your dog for a walk, while you watch television, while you're waiting in the queue for something at the supermarket, while you're in the car. You strengthen your energetic system, and you will find over time that things that once bothered you don't bother you anymore.
That's great. It feels to me like it could become part of a daily routine, like brushing your teeth, having a shower.
It is.
And even when you're brushing your teeth, for example, you can tap, change your hand as you brush your teeth and still tap. That's a great...
The difficulty is making it into a habit. You can't just do 5 minutes of tapping and think, oh, well, that didn't do anything for me, I'm not going to bother with it, which I think perhaps a lot of people do. Yep. Even for me, loving my emotions as I do, and them being a really big part of my life, I still had to build it into a habit that I do all the time. And I remember once somebody saying to me, they saw me tapping, and they took it as a sign that I was stressed. And I said, isn't that interesting? I said, because actually I do this tapping because I know it makes me less stressed.
Yeah.
And that if someone was to take my saliva before I started tapping, my cortisol levels, and tested them, and then they retested me an hour later after doing tapping, you would find that those stress hormone levels had actually gone down. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Now, how did you, when you were first shown how to do it, what appealed to you with this technique?
It's simplicity. It's
Yeah.
so simple. Anybody can do it. And I made a decision when I first learned about tapping, you know, because I love Reiki. I love Reiki. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
here without Reiki. I found Reiki when my son was about one.
Yeah.
And it saved my life. It saved his life. It gave, you know, it's amazing, and I love it. And I'm so glad I have it in my life. I love reflexology. I'm really missing at the moment. A friend and I, we do a swap week and week about, and I'm really, really missing not having that once a fortnight at the moment.
Same
But
here.
I made the decision, if I'm going to meet somebody and I've got 5 or 10 minutes to give something to them that can potentially change their life, what am I going to do? Am I going to put my hands on their shoulders for 5 minutes? Oh, well, you know, they feel a bit warm. They'd have to go off and they'd have to find someone who does Reiki, or, you know, show them some points on the hand. Most of my clients I've ever given hand homework to have never done it. Or do I teach them tapping? I remember once sitting next to someone on a plane who was really nervous, and I said, oh, look, I've got this really good technique that you might like to use to help you with your fear of flying. And I taught it to this person. He said, oh, thank you. And I don't know whether you went away and used it or not, but he had something that he could do on the plane to decrease his anxiety. And I found out, you know, I know that some of the people, many of the people perhaps that I've taught tapping to, I've done a few little workshops, have perhaps not gone away. And yet I had another woman come, she came back to me actually for a reflexology. Oh, that tapping, she said, I've been using that because I have a real phobia of getting into lifts. She said, and I've been using it and I'm much better in lifts now, you know. And so you just get these incidental things about,
That's wonderful.
I actually have used it.
Yeah. So how can you use it at the moment with the COVID-19 going around? A lot of people feel a bit anxious. They don't know what the future holds. Their life has changed dramatically for most people.
Yep. I would just learn the points, start tapping. If you are a family person and you've got family in your house, teach them the points. And I would suggest any time you are talking to each other about what's happening, that you all tap. Even if it's just choose one point, it doesn't matter, just do some tapping when you're actually talking about it. If you're watching the news, if you're listening to the radio about the next statistic or the next death or whatever, tap as you listen. Start even tapping before you turn on the news. And if you use the tapping to catch what you're feeling, you can think, oh, I'm okay. And many people say, oh, you know, I'm fine, I'm coping, I'm whatever. But what I've found is once you start to tap, even if you think you're okay, something will surface. Yeah. Now, you can't manufacture feelings with tapping. You can't make something come up and be there if it's not there. So if you are absolutely perfectly fine, nothing will come. But if you've been pushing things below the surface, as most of us do when we don't want to face things, it might be right there for you to just tap on this anxiety, this, you know, this fear of the future. I'm feeling so nervous, I'm scared to go out. And just keep tapping until you feel that start to diminish. The difference, the reason that I love working with Steve Wells from EFT Down Under is because he and David, his friend David Lake, Dr. David Lake, they came up with continual tapping. When I first started working with tapping, I was watching things that came from America, the traditional EFT, and they use a setup statement. Even though this COVID-19 is happening, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Yeah. Even that, and so people got really confused and worried about saying the wrong words, which you mentioned before. And I got concerned about using the wrong words too. What do I say? How do I frame it? But the beautiful thing about when I met Steve was that they came up with something called SET, Simple Energy Technique. So you just tap on the points and you start wherever you are. I'm feeling really scared. I'm feeling overwhelmed, this overwhelm. feeling really overwhelmed. And he gets you to focus on where that overwhelm might be in your body. Is it in your chest? Is it in your throat? Is it in your head? And just focus on that until you can sort of chase it around the body as it moves, because things will move like pain. If you tap on pain, it might go from here to here to here, and you can chase the pain. So he says you just tap on whatever comes up.
The main thing you say then is, I'm really worried about, or I'm feeling stressed, or
I'm feeling really, really stressed. And if you get to a point where you just like burst into tears or whatever, no words are needed. You just tap until those tears diminish.
Great. So
until that anxiety diminishes.
University or high school students who face an exam, they can say, I'm really anxious or about the exam coming up, and they can tap just saying that. And then eventually, do you say the positive then after that?
No. Well, the thing that Steve and David Lake found after working with many, many people is that tapping works on the negative. So you can say, I'm feeling well and I'm really happy and everything is good and I'm being positive, but underneath there's all this other stuff that you're not actually allowing yourself to feel. And as far as I know, what neuroscience is showing now is that if you are trying not to think of something, that thing that you're trying not to think about is a light in your brain. Until you tap on it and deal with it, and that light can go off.
Great.
Yeah. So
where can people find out more information about you?
Well, I have a little website called the EFT Express.
Yeah.
A little train traveling around the world. That was my aim, to travel around, and when I traveled, to teach as many people as I could how to tap. So the EFT Express. And if anybody is interested in, I had one person who was going to join me last Thursday, but in the end couldn't. But I thought on a Thursday morning at 10 o'clock, if anybody wanted to do some tapping together, we could do it on Zoom. I only have the free version, so it would be a 40-minute session. But one of the things that Peter Stapleton talked about with the recent study they did with tapping is that after tapping in a group for an hour, you get something that's called borrowing benefits. So you borrow benefits from other people's stories. And the cortisol levels went down by 46% when they tapped in a group for an hour.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So tapping together is fantastic. It's a great thing to do. Yeah.
Yes, I remember a reflexology workshop where we did connecting points. We were only 12 of us, but the energy in the room was amazing. So the collective energy, as we know as Reiki practitioners, is just wonderful. Yeah. So it's good to hear that it's the same with EFT.
So I wouldn't try and install positive things too quickly. I would really make sure that you have dealt with the anxiety, the fear, the nervousness, the overwhelm, the panic first. One word I do use myself quite a lot that I like is I am willing. I am willing. Even if I'm not right now, I'm willing to be calm. And what I've been thinking about recently in this chaos is the fact that in the middle of chaos, there is a still point of calm. And that even though this craziness is going on and the world as we know it has gone, I'm willing to be that calm point in the middle. And I can be that calm point in the middle. And another thing where it really helped me so much was I used to be a catastrophizer. I could catastrophize out of the simplest little thing and create all these dramas. And there's a really interesting woman called Byron Katie, and she wrote a book called Loving What Is. And she just has 4 simple questions. And the first one is it the truth? Is it 100% the truth that this is going to happen? That you've walked past someone who's coughed, I'm going to get COVID-19. Is that the truth? Is that 100% the truth? Catch that thought. Well, actually, no, it's not. How would I, like, if I believe that, if I have that thing happen and I attach to that fear the thought that that person's got the disease and I'm going to get it, I'm going to be very, very stressed. But if I recognise, well, actually, I've caught that. No, that's not the truth. That's not the truth, 100% the truth that I know that. And I can actually be really calm. I can actually choose not to go to that place. I can actually choose to let that thought go, let that feeling that's attached to that thought or that scenario go, and I can actually be calm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I use Reiki a lot to be calm. And I'm also at the stage of my life where I think, well, I've done my job, I've done what I had to do, and I've always thought that way. If tomorrow is it, so be it. But we can't all think that way, and we're not all in that same situation. Young families with young children,
I know.
they have totally different concerns to
Yes, I know.
where you and I are at. So,
and I remember what it was like to live in fear. Sorry.
This is a great tool for younger families as well to, to help them to relax more.
There's a lot of online stuff for children. It's wonderful. They're using it in cancer centres in overseas to help children with all sorts of things. The Tapping Solution's got some books, I know, for children about how to use tapping. There's Dr. Peter Stapleton from Bond University. She's got online training for teachers, how to use it in the classroom, being used a lot in the classroom. So there are lots and lots of resources. I would just, say to people, don't get caught up in the words. Or, am I saying the right thing or not saying the right thing? Just tap. The tapping will do the work. And if you do want to add the tapping to some particular issue, then that's fantastic. But even if you just tap every day, you will get benefits.
That's wonderful. I'll quickly share my screen to show your webpage. Your website.
Yes. So if people go to to click on the more under resources, it shows the little resources and research, and it shows just those charts of the points and a brief explanation of how to do it.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And there's some links to research that's been done and different things, and you can use that. I also can do online Zoom classes, or one-on-one with people. And if anybody wants to email me, just at mattingleyjanette@gmail.com, and would like to start up and be involved in a Zoom tapping once a week or more, depending on what happens, that would be a really great thing too. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. I'll stop sharing here, and thank you so much, Janette, for this information. It's been really useful for me to know that, because I was getting into a knot with the what to say and how to say it, and that really made it much clearer. And also that it is much simpler to use than what I thought it would be, because of what I heard people say doing it.
Yeah, no, it's just a bit like peeling the onion. You start with one layer, you tap on that layer. If something else comes up, just tap on that, and you just keep going. And the tapping will do the work. By just tapping on those points, we don't exactly know why. It's exactly the same as we don't exactly know why Reiki works or whatever, but it does. Why reflexology works is so brilliant. But tapping really does, and the science now validates the amazing things that happen in the body when you tap on those points.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'll stop here.
Okay.
Lots of great information. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I love talking about tapping and sharing it.
Yep. If anyone wants to get in touch with Janette, it's the EFTexpress.com.au.
Yep.
Yep. So again, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Anne.
All the best in the coming weeks, and stay safe.
Yeah, thanks. Same to you. Same to everybody out there. Keep tapping.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Janette.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.